Garrett and Dwight, welcome to Mint. How are we doing? How are we feeling? Thank you for being on.
Yeah, I'm feeling personally electrified and ready to be on the legendary Mint podcast.
Likewise, yeah. Enjoying ETH Denver.
Yeah, we're here at
Meeting
ETH
friends
Denver.
IRL.
Jesus, it's been crazy here so far. I feel like between Deadmau5 and all the other side events, it's too much chaos. I'm personally exhausted. How are you guys keeping up?
Yeah, man. It is pretty hectic, but yeah, it's just great seeing everyone here. Putting faces to Twitter PFPs is
Right.
one of my favorite pastimes now.
I love it.
Yeah. I think like meeting all the Web3 music people in real life has been like my favorite thing by far. That's what's keeping me energized.
Is this the first time actually everybody's like meeting one another? At least on your end? All the other like music companies, all the other music projects, the creators and whatnot?
Just this trip, I mean, we met the Arpeggi folks, we met the Catalog folks, and I just met up with the Decent folks. This is the first time we've met them in person, so yeah.
Yeah, and then meeting up with some of like the older heads that have been around the space, Jack Spallone, Dan Fowler, all those guys. Those were all my first time. Lenny, Young Spielberg.
Yeah.
Lots of new interactions.
Well, look, I'm excited to have you guys on. Part of season 4, all about music. So why don't we just dive in, okay? Garrett, who are you? Dwight, who are you? Give us a quick brief about yourselves. What are you guys building? I think we can start there.
Cool.
Amazing. Yeah, I'll start. I shout out to my mom and dad for giving me a guitar way back in the day and starting this insane snowball of a journey in music. Playing in bands in middle school and high school, and then getting into shows and festivals, and just being around music for my entire life was one sort of parallel happening. And then in another sort of parallel, like I was getting into crypto, like in 2013, just frustrated with why can't I buy any stocks, like, and why can't I participate in financial markets? So I got into crypto around then, and that has been sort of my life. And now we're here at Mint Songs, sort of colliding those two worlds together. Sort of hand it off to Garrett to sort of tell his story, and then we can get into Mint Songs. But yeah, I mean, before we started Mint Songs, I was a venture capitalist. So really just seeing startup companies and screening thousands of them. And luckily for me, I saw 6 of our investments become unicorn companies. So
Wow.
I spent a lot of my time just watching and following and observing how our founders went from 0 to 1 and then 1 to scale. Was a key focus of mine for the last 4 years. So valuable. And shout out to Kyle, Evan, Omar, and Sood over there at AAF for giving me that experience, because it was so invaluable. But yeah, handing it off to Garrett to tell his story.
Yeah. What about you, Garrett?
Yeah. I got into crypto around 2016 or so, ironically by Dwight. Dwight was always early in crypto. And then that rolled right into the ICO phase, which was like, I don't know, one of the craziest times in crypto. And around that time too, me and Dwight went to the same college, James Madison University, and I was trying to like figure it out. I was doing photography work, working with like Ferrari, Lamborghini, like all these crazy brands, and I saw that there was a finite end to that, and like scaling to professional photographers, like, a hard feat. And so, I took a break. I lived in a tent for 3 months, traveling across the U.S. With my partner. We ended up in San Diego, and then I was like, all right, we should I should start building a career. And so I went into the Web2 space, SaaS, went to early stage startup called House Call Pro out in San Diego. And, I was like the 10th engineer. And then when I left 3 years later, I was like the 100th engineer, and really just got to grow with the company. Really exciting times. Towards the end, I was one of the lead engineers for the MarTech and internal tooling team. So I was like deep in the web too. Like, how do we, track these users? What are they doing? Mm-hmm. And, I was excited about what opportunities Web3 could happen and expose. And so, yeah, this is like the convergence of 2 of my favorite things in life, which is music. I've always loved music. Live shows is like one of my favorite things. In crypto, which is like
Yeah.
the cutting edge of technology.
So you guys met in college then, from what I understand.
Yeah, we met in college in an organization called the Society of Entrepreneurs. Around that, it was a group at James Madison where it was just a group of people that wanted to build businesses, and just so fortunate to have met Garrett there while I was there.
What grade was that? Was it like sophomore year or freshman year? Do you remember?
I think it was my junior year. I did a victory lap. So.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, his junior year, my sophomore year.
Yeah, and that group had like some pretty cool things come out of it too. Like one of them was Dan Hunt and them, which was the first publicly traded marijuana stock.
Sick.
Yeah, it was a crazy good group of guys.
Yeah, it's really cool. So you guys butted heads, met, and started Mint Songs. How did that come to life?
Yeah,
who approached who with the idea?
It was me, and after trading ICOs in 2017, 2018, I saw NFTs. My first, encounter with NFTs was Decentralizing, and then I saw CryptoKitties, and for me, I was like, okay, CryptoKitties, Dapper Labs, they got an Andreessen check. Whatever they do next, I'm probably gonna, focus hard on it and get involved real early. So NBA Top Shots was that project that they made next. I got in the closed beta, and I was like, wow, this is truly game changing. Around the same time, I got into Nifty Gateway and got the debut NFT art pieces of Beeple, Mad Dog Jones, Fuck Render, and really just participating in the space. Like, for me, I was a huge basketball fan, so Top Shot made sense, and I was also a huge digital art fan. I was following Beeple on Instagram since I was in high school, so I saw his, I saw him create NFTs. I was like, okay, this, like, if this space has any legs to it, it's gonna be because one of the largest digital artists that I follow is gonna enter the space. So, around that time, I sort of saw the writing on the wall. I was like, okay, music artists are digital artists. Like, this is gonna work for them too. It's just a matter of time. So, I approached Garrett, and at the time, Garrett and I were actually working on another music project. It was called Channel, and basically what Channel was, it was an app where you connected your Spotify, and based on the artists that you followed on Spotify, you would see basically a custom, what we call an MTV channel of all the YouTube videos that those artists would post. It showed the newest videos from the artists that you posted on YouTube. So really sort of connected those social graphs together. But yeah, we were already actively building in the music space, and then NFTs happened to me, and I was like, Garrett, you gotta check this out, man. Like, Garrett has a text on his phone from September of me tell him about Top Shots and all this stuff, and I was like, hey, no one's doing this for music yet. This is like our moment, because it's the intersection of what we've been just doing up until this point.
Yeah. So when he hit you with that, what were some of the initial thoughts?
Yeah, I still hung around crypto, but it had kind of died down after the ICO phase, and so I'd stayed close. I didn't fully understand the use case at first. Like, I had to, I think generally in life, like, taking a step back and like just challenging your own thoughts is probably a good thing. And so I was like, I don't understand it, but like, I trust Dwight. Basically anything that Dwight has done well for me. So let's, let me explore it. And I think it took like probably 2 months of me like really diving in, starting to understand the space to a point where I was like, all right, yeah, dude, like, I will quit my job. Let's do this full time. Which was like a scary leap because I was at a high growth SaaS startup that's probably going to IPO, and like there's an opportunity cost there. But
was it worth it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
yeah, without a doubt.
So what is Mint Songs? What are you guys after? What are you guys chasing? What problem are you trying to solve?
What we identified early on was that there was just a barrier for artists to enter the space. Which were many different factors, whether it was like, creating a MetaMask and storing a seed phrase. Like, that initial onboarding was so hard. And then you have the gas fees. So it's like, how do you actually create the NFTs and sell them? And all encompassing is just the education around both the artist and the consumer. So what Mint Songs is trying to do at the highest level is help music artists build Web3 communities. And we do so by, building the picks and shovels to really help an artist go to their fans and onboard them into the space with as little barriers possible. So that's sort of our 2-second on that, but I think, since we started Mint Songs back in January of 2021, we've just seen the space evolve. We have a lot of awesome like peers in the space now who I sort of mentioned earlier. And, one thing that I really, intentionally, built with Mint Songs is just a strong engineering core. Like, a lot of what Garrett and I have built today is like a culture of, hey, let us build a really strong core and really throw a bunch of darts at the table, because right now we're all still trying to find product market fit. And for us, we know that there's like this endpoint, right? All music artists are going to have NFTs, and all music consumers are going to have at least one NFT. So like, how do we get to that point as fast as possible? And that really played into our core ethos of, let's build an open marketplace. Let's build it so it's Web3 native. So if Mint Songs does, die in the future, knock on wood, that all artists will still have ownership of the NFTs that they've created. Or at least, they'll have the provenance of it, and then the consumers will have the ownership of those NFTs. So really promising these folks, like, this is the Web3 future. We're not a custodial platform. You fully own the NFTs that you create with us. So, that's really the ethos. And, we're waiting for that moment, right? Like, and we're building towards it where, hundreds of thousands of artists will enter the space, hundreds of thousands of consumers will enter the space. And, our thought was, let's build an open space for that to be a possibility.
So when you say building communities for musicians, what does that mean? So you talked about onboarding, and I also say this like as a dumbed down question, because I want to further define what a musician's community may look like on chain, right? So walk me through more of that thesis. Like, okay, you guys are building and helping musicians build their communities, right? Through their songs, through their tracks. So what does that really mean?
Yeah, that's a great question, Adam. And, I was, to start, NFTs are really the atomic unit of Web3 community, right? So whenever you create an NFT, you sell it or give it away to someone, and now it's in an Ethereum address. And, the biggest thing about Web3 in general across, music, art, what DeFi is really the data transparency. And for us, we tell artists, if you believe in this decentralized future, having a Web3 community is so important today, because you'll be able to, once you have a community of, say, 1,000 folks that own your NFTs, you'll have 1,000 Ethereum addresses. You'll eventually be able to layer an analytics layer on top of that, which will help you be data-driven about every single future decision that you make. This is a Web3 community. Actually understanding what your community, what your collector looks like, and then building things and being data-driven about, about what your community likes. So it'll help you be sort of more successful in the long run, is sort of how I would sort of describe a Web3 community. It's more than just, oh, they're just my collector. No, it's like, now that you have this data, it's just such a radical thing that we still haven't fully sort of adapted to, but that's really the data play, the grail of this whole thing.
So data is a core part of that foundation. Obviously, everything is on chain, everything is traceable. Every interaction says something about you and your online identity, right? Which is a whole nother discussion. But Garrett, how do you think about community personally?
Yeah, I think where I stand with community is like, eventually everything will move towards community driven. Like, even in the Web 2 world, you're starting to see like this influx of community managers and less paid spend. And so through that paradigm, like the ability to have a community, the ability to make data-driven insights and actions off of that, like, a use case could be of your collectors, what's the average Ether balance, right? And then how to price NFTs for the future, right? Or like, there's token gated campaigns, there's activation once you get them in your community. And so you can build all these cool social graph tools. Like, there's just endless possibilities. And so, at the end of the day, everybody, like, customers are community if you do it right. Fans are community. And so it's like a core ethos to building a successful anything.
I met someone here at ETH Denver, I think at the Forgot which event it was. It was yesterday. Today is February 18th. Yesterday, the 17th. He's actually doing something really cool. And we talk about community right now. And I don't know which platform he's minting on. I just know that he's gotten really nitty gritty with the development side and like smart contract hacking, and is using Chainlink oracles to basically bring streaming data on chain. And then his NFT unlocks experiences as his fans engage with that song more. So he has milestones to his song. So if it hits 1,000 listens, that NFT unlocks a new experience. If it reaches 10,000 listens, a new experience. 100,000, a new experience, etc. So it's like a dynamic NFT. Something similar, if we're talking about creators, LaMelo Ball, he did something very similar with his drop in the NBA, which my friend did. But aside from that, when you guys think about community, like it's more than just collecting an asset. It's more than just collecting an NFT. You guys, from what I understand and what I believe, is like we're all betting on that everything, or at least almost everything, is going to be on chain that's digital, right? From tickets to album covers to songs to beats to loops. The list goes on and on and on. So you guys are focused more on the data layer, right? And providing them with tools and the minting assets and whatever's required to build that community, from what I'm understanding.
Yeah, that's definitely a core piece of it, right? Also, a handful of our artists are taking their songs and turning them into NFTs, and they're making more money on turning their songs into NFTs than they are on streaming. So yeah. I think we also need to be realistic here, right? Like artists are going to wholly get into NFTs because there's going to be a money-making opportunity to it. Like, I mean, that's why they got into streaming, right? It's going to be this, like, we could talk very high level here and very idealistic about what the future of music and NFTs look like. But for an artist, NFTs are just going to be another tool to their toolkit, right? They're going to do touring still. They're going to sell merch. NFTs are just, a digital merch strategy or a gamification layer to their brand that'll just be additive and allow them to engage with their community in a totally new way that sort of will enable them to, create brand equity for their fans. Like, I think that's also an important part. So, I do talk idealistically about like what the end state looks like for an artist and the data-driven motives for building a Web3 community. But, at the core of it, like if we can help artists make more money so that they can keep doing what they want to do, then we increase the amount of, the middle class in the creator economy, which, I think, that opinion for me, I want the creator economy to be larger. And I think a lot of the folks in the Web3 space that are building sort of at the intersection of NFTs and creative also think the same way.
Yeah. Why do you guys believe NFTs could define the future of music?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think NFTs open up, like, I'm putting on my nerd hat for a second.
Sure.
Like, I think NFTs open up this really unique composable layer that you don't get in these isolated systems that you see in Web 2. What that really translates out to be is like the composability of this core unit can be abstracted over multiple different startups, companies doing multiple different things to where you get like, all tides rise, all the ships, and you have this really unique experience. It's the whole ethos around having a shared data set, right? And so you no longer have to rely on APIs. You no longer have to rely on reliability of, insert whoever's API here. Like, you can just call on chain. Any company can build on top of that, and you could just unlock a whole different class of experiences.
Dwight, what's your take?
Yeah, I think that what we experience, this is a core philosophy of mine. Like, whatever we experience in the physical space will be reflected into the digital space.
For sure.
And, what artists do in the physical space is they sell physical merch to folks, and that comes in the form of hoodies, hats, shirts, vinyl, posters. So, when I think of when people ask like, are NFTs are really going to be game changing for music artists? I'm like, hell yeah, they are. They already do this in the physical space. This is just the digital version of it. And if we ascribe to the fact that we are, just turning, the physical digital through, FaceTime and in real life interactions and Amazon and retail stores, like this is just natural. Like this is organic for them. It's just a matter of just educating folks that this isn't like oh, this is crypto, whatever, black box, whatever, but it's just a reflection of what we currently do.
Yeah. Another use case I want to talk about on the point of community, and why I think NFTs could define the future of music, the future of fan and artist relationships. So Mint threw an event here at ETH Denver on the 15th, this like Web3 creator meetup, and this really dope like independent artist, her name's Queen George, she performed. But it wasn't just like an ordinary performance. It was done very strategically. So the tickets to actually get access to the meetup were through NFTs. And all of her NFTs had Queen George on them, right? So people were able to mint an NFT as a ticket, and they already became collectors of her without even spending a dime. Now, on top of that, not only did they become collectors, but then they came to the meetup and watched her perform, right? And she had QR codes everywhere, like plastered everywhere, so that they can, one, join her Discord, right, and connect their wallet, and two, mint a song that she was about to perform live, right? And talk about like a new experience, because they were able to collect something from her without even spending $1, which you think about like barrier to entry, you think about funnels, right? You think about onboarding users. What a interesting touch point to give something of the artist to the fan without really working for it as much. And then on top of that, tying in that entire experience by watching a live performance. So you collected her asset, you watched her perform live, you joined her Discord, and you could also bid on an NFT, all under one cycle, both URL and IRL. Now, when you guys think about like data and community, these are all assets that are on chain, right? As more of these wallet addresses kind of buy other things, join other communities, vote on other, on Snapshot, on Tally, whether it's off-chain, on-chain voting, she can start building a profile around those addresses, right? That extends way beyond just collecting an NFT. I'm guessing that's how you guys are thinking about it as well, right? Like the intricacy, the data, that it's an onion that you're peeling, right?
Yeah, Adam, I want to commend you on that. Like that's an amazing way to onboard new folks into the space, right? And Garrett and I launched a product recently called Posters that allows artists to turn tour posters and show posters into NFTs that artists can give away to their fans for free, and their fans just need an email address to claim it. So really thinking through like, how do we just lower the barrier for a music consumer to participate in the Web3 space, right? I think we've spent the last couple of months just talking with our artists, and there is a top of funnel problem where the artists are going to their fans and they're saying, hey, go check out my NFTs here, but artists haven't done the educational process. Like a lot of their fans just don't know what's happening yet. So what better way to educate folks than free NFTs, right? Like I always like to tell folks this experience of mine. Like in 2013, I got my first free Bitcoin because I got it from Coinbase. So I'm like, okay, now look at where I am. So the idea of just making it as low friction as possible, and with your ticket example, it's a great example, right? Like you create a moment, that moment is valuable, and for Queen George, like she's able to now sort of see what her collectors are doing, right. And that's so powerful. So over time, I think more tools are going to enable artists to just embed NFTs into their everyday processes. And for us, we identified that artists already put out tour posters and show posters. So the next step is like, hey, we just go to artists and say, hey, let's just turn this tour poster into an NFT that you can give away to your fans, and you can gauge your fans and see who's interested in NFTs, and at the same time collect email addresses and ETH addresses. Like it's all about being genuine with onboarding. I think on the consumer side, a lot of people are burned out from the NFT space because they see the headlines like $69 million piece from Beeple, and there's like, what the hell is this? Or
Right.
is it just like the rich playground? And it's not really like that, right? Like it's really like we're trying to build tools for inclusivity, and a lot of artists are interested in, building in the Web3 space from sort of this inclusive lens. Like, how do I get my entire fan base to play in the Web3 instead of, just selling NFTs at like NFTs to folks? It's like, how do we just let everyone in and then create experiences around that inclusivity is super important.
What do you guys think is stifling a seamless onboard process today?
Yeah, we've spent
Beyond the obvious of just downloading a wallet, which is your port of entry into Web3, right?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of UX issues.
Okay.
We originally came in with the lens of like there is a UX problem in Web3, and I think that's broadly known at this point. And so, like, for us, it was communicating with fans and artists and like understanding the friction points. Obviously, the wallet was one, so we introduced a tool called Magic Link, where you can sign up with an email and get a non-custodial wallet. So if you do bridge into that like area where you're now like, deeper, you can get your private key, and we never touch it. You can get your private key and go, import it into MetaMask, and now you're able to convert into that, like, I don't know, I'll call it more advanced user for better terms. There's also things just around like, how do you pay and transaction fees? Recently we shipped something called meta transactions. Effectively, we will cover all of the transaction costs for interactions on Mint songs. And so, now you can come on, like, as an artist, you could come on with zero knowledge of Web3, sign up with an email, get a non-custodial wallet, go mint a song without having to have Matic, as we're built on Polygon, and launch an NFT in like, I don't know, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, if that.
Solid. Who takes over the gas fees?
We do.
Really?
Yeah. So with meta transactions, we cover the gas fees, and with Polygon, the gas fees are small enough to where it's
doable.
Yeah,
manageable. Yeah, interesting. I see, like, we're obviously super early. I try to remind people to zoom out for a minute, right? Because when you're in the day-to-day of crypto Twitter, when you're in the day-to-day of buying music NFTs, you're using products, you forget like how early we are sometimes, right? And it's interesting to see how I personally believe we haven't even scratched the surface of what music X crypto really, really looks like. My next question to you guys is like, where do you imagine us being a few years from now? And let's take this from like a 2-year point of view, because shit changes within a matter of hours. It's like overwhelming at times. Like, what's missing in music X crypto that we don't have today that you see as obvious opportunities, for example?
Yeah, I think, a lot of what the NFT, like, I always liken NFTs to digital in-game assets. Like, folks that play video games like understand this, right? Like, and like you said, we are very early, and I always like you zoom out and see that the folks that are younger than us, like the 20 somethings and the teens, they're playing video games, they're playing on apps, and there's in-app purchases, and they're used to digital assets, right? So when they become of age, they're going to understand this. It's going to be second nature to them. They're going to think of blockchain as just underlying technology that powers what they normally do, and it'll come natural to them, unlike to us. Like, it doesn't feel as natural to us. So that's sort of one macro barrier that we need to sort of overcome. I always like to think, what does the end state of music and NFTs look like when millions of artists are in the space making NFTs and millions of consumers are in the space making NFTs? Like, what does that actually look like, and what are the interfaces that we use so that we can interact with all these NFTs? One thing that we're thinking is sort of, I always like to think of this thought experiment, right? Like, you have an artist, and they go to create a one-of-one NFT, say this artist has been making music for the last year or so. Like, at minimum, that one-of-one NFT should be valued at, $25 to $100. Like, I feel like that's like such a safe bet, right? And I think at scale, this is what it's going to look like, right? It's not going to, I think, where we stand in creating affordable NFTs, we're really playing into that future. Like, what does it look like when we're maxed out in scale, max saturation with all these artists in the space? Like, what does it look like to be a consumer in this space? Like, I think most folks are not going to be interested in paying like over $100, but because it's in the $10 to $100 price range, most music consumers already buy merch in that price range. They buy shirts, hoodies, like that's how much they pay. So it's like, oh, I can get a one-of-one art piece for my favorite artist for $60. It's like, do I get a hoodie that is mass printed, or do I get a rare art piece from this artist? Now, when you think of, okay, $60 for this one-of-one art piece, and then you sort of add that to what artists are making on streaming, and then it becomes something very tangible. And I think one thing that I'm very interested in is, the reality where artists are making more money per song through turning them into NFTs than they are making in streaming, because what happens is you have a flippening and artists get the leverage. They get the leverage against the labels, they get the leverage against streaming, so they can get better deals. And I think, over time, artists are going to still stream. They're going to do NFTs in parallel, but they're going to have way more leverage, because they can show like, hey, collectors like value my art this way, right? So that's sort of how I imagine the end state when millions of artists are in the space. It needs to, Garrett always talks about this, like Stripe's core messages to increase the GDP of the internet. And, what we really want to do here at Mint Songs is increase the GDP of music NFTs. Like, how do we just make sure that we have the infrastructure set up so that we can scale to that many folks, is really what we've set up over here.
Yeah. Garrett, anything to add to that?
No, I think that's really, really thought out well. I think one of the other pieces that's missing that we'll likely see in the future, Dwight's actually been harping on this a lot lately. The consumption layer is not totally there. And so, like, consuming PFPs or other things, like you have it on your Twitter, like, what does the consumption layer for music look like? I think that's something that's missing that we'll see within the next 2 years.
The first thing that comes to mind off the bat, which you guys know Joey, right? Really good friend of mine, really talented Web 2, Web 3 developer. We've been like throwing shit at the fan for a while. A few months ago, we were like, okay, what if there was just an app that allowed you to connect your wallet and a music player would pop up and you could listen to the songs that you collect? And it was just way too early, right? It was like way too early, because now we're in the music NFT scene, right? Now we're in the hype cycle. People are collecting and people are understanding. But like, that's the first thing that comes to mind when we think of consumption layer. Exactly. Right? Like being able to actually listen to your songs offline, right? Being able to listen to them on airplane mode when you're flying, being able to run with, like, that entire layer, enjoyment layer, is missing, right? That adds more character, more emotion, more appreciation to what you actually collect, because now it just sits in your wallet. Like,
exactly,
you can't really do, like, maybe it has value, maybe there's some type of staking protocol that can come down the line where you can extract value, off like lending pools, whatever that may look like. But yeah, now I'm just like thinking out loud for whatever reason. But I hear you. That consumption layer is missing, that enjoyment layer.
Exactly.
For sure.
Right. Like, what does it look like when all these NFTs sit in one place and we can, have a music streamer that aggregates not only Mint Songs NFTs, but sound and catalog and every other NFT that sort of fits our metadata standard, audio file, album artwork, plus, all these other metadata points. Like, when it's in that format and it's at scale, we can create, a decentralized Spotify that allows anyone to participate in music NFTs. You don't even need to own a music NFT. You can make a playlist of all the songs that you want to listen to, because they're all on IPFS, right? Mm-hmm. So you, as a non-NFT owner, can experience Web3 music without ever owning an NFT. The key difference here in this streaming app is that there's this new sort of data layer where, you have the artist name, you have the track name, but then you have the owned by. Mm-hmm. And you'll see owned by, whether it's the ENS, Adam Levy.ENS, or, maybe brands will want to capitalize on this real estate, Coca-Cola.ETH, right? So it starts as, I think over time we've like we're hip to this, like we're hip to the music consumption, right? LimeWire, iTunes, Napster, Spotify, Apple Music. Like we know how we like to consume music. So it's just a matter of time before someone builds the aggregator layer that doesn't feel like OpenSea or Rarible or these marketplaces that focus on visuals, but focuses on the actual consumption, where we can create playlists, where I can listen to a collection of Adam's of all of his NFTs across sound and catalog him in songs, and I can make my own playlist of my own NFTs that combine your NFTs, right, and everyone else's. So it really creates this new way to engage with music NFTs that feels more native to us, that feels more familiar. Is super important for that.
What's up, guys? Adam Levy here. Sorry for the quick pause. I wanted to give some love to our 2 NFT sponsors that are making this episode a reality. They are Coinvise and Polygon Studios. On Coinvise, you can create a personal or community-owned social token on Ethereum or Polygon. Coinvise also helps you create incentives through token rewards and bounties, NFT business models, and bot integrations for Discord. Discover more today by visiting coinvise.co. Polygon Studios is the gaming and NFT arm of Polygon, who's focused on growing the blockchain gaming and NFT industry while bridging the gap between Web 2 and Web 3 gaming. The Polygon Studios ecosystem comprises highly loved blockchain games like OpenSea, Upshot, Avagachi, Zedrun, Skyweaver, Decentraland, and Decentral Games. If you're a gamer, builder, or NFT creator looking to join the Polygon Studios ecosystem, get started today by visiting polygonstudios.com. All right, back to the episode. Let's talk about collecting for a second, okay? Let's talk about ownership. Right now, I'm looking on my laptop right now, okay? Actually, before I even get into that, like the history of a song, from pirating to then the iTunes store and people buying for 99 cents to $1.20, right? To now one-time payment, get access to a library of million songs, to now collecting songs, right? This like historic timeline. Everybody's just used to paying $12.99, $9.99 and getting access to the music. People are used to that. One, how do we get people to care more about actually collecting and going back to that previous state of buying a song for 99 cents? And 2, is collecting for everyone?
Yeah, that is a great question, right? And I think humans are inherently collectors. We like to collect a lot of different things. Like, I mean, I bet like most of our parents have like DVD collections,
sure,
right? Like, or CD collections, or maybe a bunch of knickknacks or Beanie Babies or whatever it may be, right? We like to collect in the physical space. So when I think of, folks collecting music NFTs, it really, music just has to resonate with you on that level for you to sort of make that step. Like, it has to be, I really like the music and I want to support the artist because this is a medium that they want to participate in. Plus, I understand what's happening here and I want to participate in the entire ecosystem by owning music NFTs. So it's really, there's definitely it's hard to teach this, right? Like you can't make someone a collector. It's just something that
which, by the way, comes with like financial education of what ownership is.
100%.
Right? And I think we can all agree that a lot of people worldwide don't understand financial literacy, right? And let alone understand the concept of ownership, why people stay renting versus owning a house, right? Despite the financial, like the monetary issues that come with that. But I feel like that same mindset applies to owning something digitally as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like, music had such a weird kind of trajectory, right? Like, it started off as like the ownership layer, and then it was like there was also piracy. So then it was like, maybe this isn't the right model. Then we moved into this streaming layer, which I kind of correlate with like renting. And now we're moving into like a true ownership layer where there is no such thing as piracy, right? You have like this is this token. This is the owner. Like, sure, you could copy it, whatever, but you don't have provenance. And so I think that education around provenance is really, really important. I don't know how we get there in the long term. I think this is like a Web3 issue, like in totality. And so like how we explain to the consumer, like you're not just getting, you're you're not just getting a picture of an ape, right?
Right.
You're getting access to a community. You're getting
your identity.
This
Yeah.
identity. Yeah. Like it's so many more things. And so like getting that out in the wild, I think is really important for like the broader web, not even Web3 and music, just like the broader spaces as a whole.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm still curious, like how do we get more fans to collect versus to just listen?
Yeah, I mean, it could be simply a Trojan horse, like what you did with Queen George, right? Like, I think one thing that I really admire about what NBA Top Shot did was that they obscured the blockchain, right? They obscured Flow, and you know, for many of the folks, they didn't really care about the underlying tech.
Yeah.
And you know, they just cared about, oh, I can participate in NBA's new collectible because, you know, I've seen physical collectibles, right? Like the cards being, you know, resold and sold for so much money on eBay. So, you know, there is like the financial literacy problem to NFTs, but I think also if you obscure it away enough, then people will just start participating in NFTs, right? Like, I mean, you talk to any, like, I always like to think like, you know, my mom plays mobile games and for all she knows, those mobile games could have an NFT layer. Like, and she would just
never
not know about it, right? So it's all about like, you know, good UI and good UX that'll enable sort of that adoption. And eventually we're not like, you know, I love that we're sort of in this moment and talking NFTs today, but in the next couple of years, it's going to be obscured and we're not even going to say the word NFT. It's just going to be, this is a digital asset that we like, you know, can verifiably own. And that's sort of going to be it. It'll be the same, like, it'll be as strange as saying, yeah, like my website is a database website, right? Like it's just back-end technology. My video game has a database that has these digital assets. No, it's just all blockchain and it's going to be obscured. So I think it'll just take time, right? Like, and as time goes on, more the literacy will go up, folks will just start getting hip, and then folks will like companies will get smarter and obscuring it, and I think there's going to be way more creative ways like we haven't even thought of, one being, you know, the project that you launched recently with Queen George. So yeah, that's sort of the thought there.
You know what's like starting to like light fuses in my brain right now? This entire conversation, you name dropped or decentralized Spotify, okay? One buzzword, another buzzword, decentralized Spotify. What does that mean? And let's brainstorm on this for a minute, okay? Talked about how Coca-Cola may end up buying a song and there'll be an ownership property to it, right? That will show up visually in the UX UI. And when you talk about like a global database, a global ledger where everything, every asset, every element sits and is identifiable on chain, then all you really have is just like an application layer that's able to aggregate all those NFTs and makes them consumable, enjoyable, right, to listen to, and tie in that element of connecting your wallet and then being able to display all your music NFTs that you own. And then let's say someone else streams that. What is the revenue source that is getting attributed to the person who owns that song as well, despite the money that the artist made from selling that NFT or portion of that NFT? And it's right, like that comes into like the legality of securities, right? And the legality of ownership on chain. I think even the current state right now is ownership is very gray area on chain. Like what does that mean when you buy a music NFT? Like what does owning that mean? Like do you own flat out all the rights associated with that, you know? But wind it back, decentralized Spotify, having a global database, like a global music library where all music sits on chain.
Yeah.
And I think about this because in front of me, I have like the data in terms of how Apple Music, Spotify, and YouTube pay out their listeners, right? So Apple Music actually pays out its listeners the highest amount per stream. So it's what, 0.0076 cents. Spotify is between 0.0026 to 0.0049 cents. And YouTube is 0.00067 cents. So what does like the royalty model, the revenue model look like for on-chain music beyond just collecting in that single transaction and the resale transaction that comes with that? I know these are like loaded ideas, but like I'm curious to hear what's your take on that.
I think that, I mean, just like how it is right now, right? An artist is turning songs that they have on Spotify into NFT, so it's like two revenue streams, right? And you take those songs and you turn them into physical merch with albums and vinyl, and you turn them into digital merch with NFTs. Going to your idea of decentralized Spotify, you know, what we're really doing on the metadata standardization is allowing a future of, you know, this layer one of music where, you know, similar to Ethereum being a layer one where people can build decentralized apps on top of Ethereum, we're going to create a layer one of music where people can build the decentralized Spotify, the decentralized Pandora, the decentralized whatever you want to build on top of that. But here's a music base that is a totally, where the economics are totally different, where ownership is is sort of the pillar and the reason why those exist. I think a lot of, you know, the loaded question that you gave me, it's more like, you know, they're going to coexist, and because they coexist, there's going to be a push and pull, and artists can decide whether or not they want to do it. It's like, I also want to back it up a little bit, like not all artists are going to do NFTs. Like, that's just the reality of it. In the same way that not all artists do hats or shirts or hoodies or vinyl. Like, it's just going to be, you know, there's going to be artists that do it and some artists that don't. Some artists post on Spotify, some artists don't, and they just post on SoundCloud, right? So it's really a matter of, do we really believe in this, that ownership is going to be a key driver of revenue for artists, right? Like, going back to the money problem, right? Like, are artists actually going to make money, enough money from NFTs to make this whole thing work? And right now, we sort of see that it is kind of working, right? Like, even on catalog, like, I was talking to an artist yesterday, and his name's Kovacs, and he sold a couple NFTs of his songs for thousands of dollars, right? Like, that just overshadows all of the revenue that he's made from that song, right? So it's just, if the economic incentives are there, something is changing, right? So that's sort of the baseline there.
Yeah, Garrett, anything to add to that?
No, I don't think anything on that. The metadata stuff is really important to build sort of these things. I don't know if we want to dive into that right now.
I do. Yeah,
Okay.
but keep it more like higher level, because I do have a bunch of questions on metadata for you guys. Sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of that, like, building that decentralized Spotify or whatever, you know, whatever it is,
right?
You know, decentralized, you know, app that does something that's cool with music NFTs. Part of that is you have to have some standardization around what things are. Like, how do you define genre? How do you define, like, like all these things that you take for granted in Spotify's UI? Like, there's been a lot of thought, data processing, AI, and machine learning to get to that state, and so, or just user input, and so, like, a key piece to get to that reality is defining this, you know, new NFT metadata standard. I've been working closely with Jeremy over at Catalog, and we actually have a proposal that we're going to put up here soon, that we've actually been working on this week at ETH Denver too. Mm-hmm. And so, like, having that standardization of, like, hey, these are the keys in the metadata, like, and these are the values, so that we could build cool apps around this same standard.
Yeah. You know what, fuck it. Let's just get into metadata right now. So that was like a brief intro on metadata. Excuse me. What is metadata? For those who don't understand, for the creators that are listening, that all they care about is just minting a song and finding a collector to support them. Why should they care about metadata?
Yeah, so metadata is the underlying connection of the asset on chain. And so, you know, when you mint something, you could mint everything on chain. That would be very expensive. You know, currently, I don't know, the last time I looked, if you want to upload like a 20 or 40 megabyte song, it was like $1 million plus.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not
fucking
feasible, right?
Brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal.
And so what people do is you have this standard called token URI, which points to either IPFS, you know, an AWS server, or some storage asset that is just a JSON of key value pairs. Of those key values, there's things like, what is the album artwork, right? Or what is the song? Like, what are you even listening to? And so those keys usually, or those values to those keys usually point out to IPFS. So you have like this JSON that tells you how an NFT should be rendered, what should come with it, just like these little pieces. Ironically, OpenSea kind of unintentionally set the metadata standard because everybody wanted to show up on OpenSea.
Yeah.
And so, like, for example, something that's, just a clear indicator that maybe this is a little broken is to get song metadata to show up in OpenSea and other dApps, you put it under a key called animation URL, which just like it's kind of like shoving a square into a circle hole type deal. It's like, this is definitely not an animation. And it's like, oh yeah, this key also takes like MP4s and like, I don't know, all these other different things. And you're just like,
which makes organizing the data in a UI point of view very difficult.
So difficult.
Yeah.
So like, how do you filter that out? Now like as dApps are building on, how do you know that something is a song versus a video?
So how do you achieve like general consensus around the metadata standards that you guys are coming together to build? That's going to be the standards that everybody's going to abide by. Versus, let's say, a competitor, for whatever reason, whoever it may be, comes in the picture like OpenSea and actually sets up metadata in their own way, right? Because it suits their platform, their needs, their revenue model, whatever the reason may be. And I may be talking out of my ass too, because I don't understand the intricacies of the technicality behind this, right? You guys are the experts here. Yeah. But is that a plausible scenario?
Yeah, so just to give some context,
okay.
For an artist in Web 2, you go to a distributor
right.
like United Masters or DistroKid or
right.
TuneCore, and you upload your songs to those distributors, and they distribute your music to Spotify, Apple Music, etc. When you upload it to a distributor, they literally have a form where you enter all the metadata. You don't know it's like that it's the metadata,
error.
but that's the process to make sure that that's the process so that they can upload your song onto all these streaming platforms. So for Web3, it's a little bit different because we're all, in some senses building in silos. OpenSea has their own standard. We have a metadata standard that we're working with Sound and Catalog. So it's over time, once a standard is in place, it's just going to be, it's going to be obscured away again.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not going to be something that we're like, what is the metadata standard? And a lot of the inspiration that we draw for the metadata standard for Web3 music is from distribution platforms. They've done this. They've spent the last decades figuring out, what metadata works for Spotify, Apple Music, etc. A lot of that is the same for Web3. Except there's a couple more nuanced things, and shout out to the Arpeggi folks that are adding sort of the credits to samples, right? Because we can track samples on chain through Arpeggi, you can see, okay, the song consists of these samples from these artists. We need to add that into the metadata. This is unique to just Web3 because we could track it all on chain. But yeah, like I said, right now, because we're building in silos, it's disjointed, but this metadata standard that we're working on allows us to sort of say, hey, we know that the reality of music in Web3 is going to allow us to create a layer 1 of music where everyone can build on top of it, just like Ethereum is layer 1. So this is what we're going to roll with.
Yeah. And I think to your question, leading by example is really important. And so, hopefully by some of the larger platforms, us, Catalog, Sound, building this in, hopefully, gains traction on others. It's inevitable that more and more music NFT startups are going to come out. One of the big things that we aim for is backwards compatibility. So if you don't support, it's okay as long as you fall back to the OpenSea support, which basically everybody does right now. And so it'll always quote unquote work, but there's a way to iterate on it to get it to a better spot. And that's really what we're this V0.01 that we're going to release here soon. That's the goal.
Yeah, that makes sense. let's zoom out again, even further. Okay, this grandiose vision of a decentralized music landscape, from publishing, creation, collecting, ticketing, merch, everything. What would actually prevent that reality from happening, you think?
Yeah, that's a great question.
What's the Achilles heel?
You know, I mean, we're founders of a Web3 music company. We can't be thinking about these things. No, I'm kidding. Like, I mean, I think there's a couple things.
If anything, I feel like you should be thinking about these things, which
Yeah.
might actually be an advantage that others may fall down and may fall trapped to.
I think
right?
one thing that is very apparent now
Okay.
is technology addiction, right? Like, I think that, you know, some people do suffer from technology addiction, and NFTs pull you back onto your phone because you need to, you know, keep up with them, and you need to see what your artist is doing. And I think, you know, as we, you know, keep going down this path of, you know, software eating the world, and technology just being ingrained in every piece of our life, I think one thing that could be a possible Achilles heel for NFTs is, you know, folks just want to unplug. And, you know, I think, you know, there could be a reality where, you know, I mean, I'm already, like, some of my friends are just like, yeah, I deleted Instagram, I deleted Snapchat. I'm sure we all have friends that have done that, right?
Yeah,
So
I do that. Yeah.
So same thing with NFTs. Like, sometimes you might just want to unplug and just sell all your NFTs and just like live in real life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think, you know, the burnout from it is like a real thing, and it's not just with NFTs. It's technology in general, and making sure that we teach folks that, you know, you just got to take breaks. You know, everything's good in moderation. Don't go to the extreme, and NFTs are just the same way. But it could be a reason why you get addicted to your computer. You're checking your trades. You're checking, you know, the discords on what your NFT's utility could be. I mean, think of, like, at scale, how many artists do you follow on Spotify? Maybe, like, I mean, I probably have hundreds, right? And, like, we follow hundreds of people on Twitter. What if everybody had their own smart contract deploying their own NFTs? Now you had a wallet that just had so many NFTs, and you're glued to it. It makes it a very dangerous situation that, you know, can lead to technology addiction. So that's definitely one that I'm very, you know,
So moderation.
some moderation, man.
Yeah. With
exactly.
everything, balance.
Balance, man.
What about you, Garrett?
Yeah. I think for me, one of the things that really stands out, my partner, she really believes in, like, living in the physical world, like, as much as possible. And so something I see is kind of on the same line is, like, you know, it's a potential scary thought to think that at some point your digital world may be more valuable than your physical world. And I think that may cause some friction at scale. You'll have people that will be anti-technology as a whole, but definitely anti-NFTs, metaverse, etc. And so, like, that will be a friction point that we will have to overcome and, like, find a good middle ground, I think, as we scale to, you know, the next billion users that come into the space.
Yeah. So we had a lot of macro type of, like, discussions. Let's get nitty gritty for a minute, okay? How the hell did you get started as a new artist, as a musician that's being inspired by this new movement, as someone who's seeing the live shows, the NFT tickets, they're seeing their favorite musicians that are on the same up and coming path as they are, tap into this new world, make money, build a niche Web3 level audience. What's your advice to them on how to get started? Okay, come to Mint Songs. Okay, we know that. Come to Mint Songs.
You know, the best thing that you can do as an artist is really experiment. Like, I always tell artists this, remember when you joined Twitter for the first time or joined Instagram for the first time, you experimented with the content that you put out on these platforms. Web3 is very similar. Experiment. Go to Mint Songs, go to Catalog, talk to the sound guys, do something there, do a custom smart contract, go on OpenSea, read as much as you can, maybe participate in DAOs, participate in NFTs yourself. Literally just try it all. I think that's not just for music artists, but generally for folks that are interested in the NFT space. Just try it, right? Like just try. And for us on Mint Songs, we lower the barrier as much as possible. Like we said earlier, like you just need to sign up with an email address, and we cover the gas fees, so you can create an NFT without ever touching crypto. We've obscured all of that so that you as an artist can easily onboard. I think that's really the key here. So outside of joining Mint Songs, just get involved in the community. Like talk to other artists that are doing this. For us, we've really spent a lot of time cultivating a culture that is welcoming and allows artists to, talk to other artists in our Discords, talk to other artists in our Twitter spaces, so that you can learn and better understand what this whole thing is all about. It's all about education right now. And, the best thing that we can do as a company is be as welcoming as possible, because it is very scary for a lot of folks. It's like, what the hell is this? Why are we all talking about this? Why are we doing it? But if there's a hand reaching out to you and they're here to say, hello, welcome to the space, like it just feels more comforting. Instead of it being sort of, most artists seeing the headlines and seeing, crypto, Mount Gox hack, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it's like, this is already ingrained. And when you approach NFTs, it's like, okay, how's this different than, the things that I've heard on the news, like drug dealers using crypto, whatever. Like there's so many of these factors playing against an artist, and the best that we can do is, be as welcoming as possible and say, hey, like we understand this might not be for everyone, but if it's for you, we're here to help you as much as we can.
Yeah, there's one like piece of advice that Daniel Allen, who's been a part of season 3, season 4, when I first met him in person and we caught up, I think we had like lunch together or something in Sherman Oaks. He's like, before I minted anything, before I touched my wallet that went to proceeds to fulfill gas fees just to like bring something on chain, I took a step back, I put a pin in it, and I got involved in the community as much as I can. Now, I fucking hate the word community. As much as I love it, it's such an abstract word. And when you think community, what does that mean exactly? So I told this to Queen George, because she's now getting involved in the music NFT side. She's been in it since like April 2021. But I told her, get into FWB, join Forefront, join Seed Club, buy some NFTs, right? Join those Discords. Build a name for yourself. Make friends. It's all about meeting people, right? Because the tighter relationships you build for yourself, right, the better prepared you'll be when you're ready to launch your own thing, right? And the number one growth hack that I tell people, and I'd love to hear your point of view because you guys talk about community and you guys want to help build community on Mint Songs, is the number one way to growth hack your face in a new community is come to conferences. Come to ETH Denver, come to Bitcoin Miami, come to NFT NYC, meet all these people, get to know the founders, get to know the other creators, and just get involved, right? What have you guys seen be other really legit strategies that creators have approached, new musicians have approached, trying to kind of break into quote unquote Web3?
Yeah, that's a good question. Another Discord that I see that's really starting to gain popularity is Water and Music.
Cool.
I'm sure you're hip to it. Sherry Hughes been putting out everything from research to pricing strategies. Like there's a lot of really good information there, and just a really good community of everybody from developers to creators to artists. I think all the things you named make sense, right? Join the community, go in, do things. I think another strategy that I've seen that's really worked well, Spotty Wi-Fi. His thesis was join into these communities, buy into them, whether it's punks or apes or cool cats, whatever it is, and just start engaging with the community and build around that. He did some songs that were specific to these projects and sold it as NFTs, and that's a good strategy. You can't fight that. You're embedding yourself in the community, you're utilizing that community, and then you create for that community, and then the community gives back.
Yeah, and I also want to bring it down to earth a little bit. I totally understand that a lot of artists offload all this energy to their management codes, right? Or their labels, or, they, because artists just want to focus on creating art. So, when we have these expectations for artists to go to, conferences, or go show up in Twitter spaces, or comment on Twitter, or go to Discord, it is like, that is something that they're just not hip to doing, at least like most of them, right? So it's like, okay, we're throwing NFTs at you, and then we're throwing, hey, join these Twitter spaces, join these Discords. It's like, fuck, this is overwhelming.
Yeah.
So, I think it's not like a one size fits all sort of scenario, right? Like, you as an artist just need to navigate it yourself. Some artists will just purely want to create art NFTs, right? Without any utility. They don't want to, bring the Patreon model into their NFTs, as in, they don't want to like fulfill the utility of NFTs because they, purely want to create art. Yeah. So we got to understand with that. We got to understand and empathize with that not all artists want to add utility to their NFTs. Some just simply want to create art pieces and allow folks to buy it. In the same way that you maybe go to an art gallery and see an art piece and you just buy it. It's not like, when you buy a Picasso, you're fucking calling them up like, hey, where's your Discord, man? Like, right? Like, so, it's not a one size fits all. And I mean, if you are an artist and you do put in the time to grind and do these things, you're going to be rewarded. So I also like to sort of say that, because if you are a music artist listening to this right now, just know that you are in the top 0.0001% of artists that actually are thinking about this and entering the space. Yeah. Like, if you enter the space right now, you are so dang early. And, what happens and, I think over time, folks that enter the space during this, I call this like the golden era, right, of music NFTs. This is just the first, we're still in the first year of music NFTs. You will be remembered as an OG if you create a music NFT today. So just keeping that in mind, if you believe in this decentralized future, that, you will be remembered and commended for being a pioneer in this space.
I think that's really beautifully said. I want to ask you also, how do you price a music NFT? So there's one of ones, there's editions, but also scanning through mint songs, there's ones that are selling for $7, $1, $20, $3,000. Like, what's the price psychology behind that? And maybe we don't have to get so psychological, but just like, what are the mental models behind publishing and pricing a song?
Yeah, so, Garrett and I like to say we've just created a canvas for folks to, decide on their own, right? Like, if you want to sell a one of one for, $25 or $1,000, you can do that. Or if you want to sell editions at, $1 a piece, you can do that. It's all about allowing an artist to decide what they want to do, right? Like, they're going to, over time, it's going to figure itself out. Like, there's going to be trends. Right now, we just, there are a couple trends, like artists are, selling out collections if they do editions at $1 a piece, and they are able to start building Web3 communities that are onboarded through cheap NFTs. So they're able to sort of benefit and play and start, cultivating that early on. I think, pricing is just sort of this, it's arbitrary, right? Like, if you buy a hoodie from, Grizz, today, in a couple of years when Grizz is even larger, that hoodie could resell for like a couple $100s on eBay, right? And it's like, wait, why didn't Grizz just sell that hoodie for $500 today? And right, and capture all that, right? It's very arbitrary, and we're just gonna let the artist decide, right? What their art is worth. I don't want to be, we had a Twitter space the other day, and an artist asked the same question, like, what should I price our NFTs? And I told him, you have to value your art in however way you want to. We have guidance. We always tell folks, like, the grail of this is the data play, because that'll help you make more money over the long run. So is it worth it to sell cheap NFTs today, so you build a base of a Web3 community of Ethereum addresses, so you can run the data layer on top of it later, or do you want to play and just sell your NFTs at one of ones and sell them for something dollars, right? It's going back to it. We're just creating a canvas. You decide as the artist, and we'll just rock from there.
Any thoughts, Garrett?
Yeah. I think Dwight touched on something too. Like, increasing the barrier of entry and inclusivity is like really important at the core. Ironically, one of the artists that recently minted on our platform, his name is Mardini. I grew up with him. He's moved out to LA and started doing well for himself. And, he came to us and he's like, hey, look, like, I actually don't care. Like, the money's not a big deal to me. Like, if it's $1, $5, $20, $100, I more care about selling it out and making sure that all of my fans can collect that, right? I thought that was really powerful. Like, less care about the money that directly comes and more care about the community that you're building, and ensuring that you're not setting up barriers to where they can't enter, especially as this like Genesis NFT. I thought was really, really unique.
Right. There's a trade-off. And I always like to bring up early days of Nifty Gateway when they did the dollar drops, right? Because anyone that claimed or bought one of those dollar drops just won. They became winners. And for Beeple, he sold 100 NFTs for $1 a piece, and anyone that has held since then now have an NFT that's the floor price is worth like $200,000. So you've created winners, and now that person has that NFT, they're going to be forever tied to your brand, and they're incentivized to keep talking about your brand, so you continue to be successful because it pulls value back to their own NFTs. So you create this environment of winners, and it's not like monetarily quantifiable, right? Like, when you make a winner, you don't know how much ROI you're going to get from that person. But I think what's good with Mardini's example is like, he wants to create winners, right? Like, and if you create winners, you're going to win over the long run because you create fans that are just that more closer to you. And isn't that the whole thing with NFTs? Like, when you sell an NFT, you're strengthening the artist fan relationship. So this is that example with Mardini is purely strengthening the artist fan relationship, giving his brand equity away, letting his fans win with him. When he wins, his fans win. It just creates a really good environment.
Smart.
Yeah.
You set a foundation for your collectors to do really well.
Exactly.
When you think about royalties and percentage splits, what is the appropriate percentage to put? I've seen anywhere between 10 to 20%. I've also seen 50%. And what's the mental model behind that, do you think?
Yeah, so we've standardized it. On Mint songs, it's 10%.
Okay.
And this, we sort of standardize it at 10% because, one, we've sort of, before standardizing it, we talked to a lot of digital artists in the space, selling NFTs on Nifty Gateway and Super Rare, and we're like, what do you think is the fair standard? Like, what do you think is a fair royalty here for secondary sales in perpetuity? And generally came back with 10%. So one of the reasons why we standardized it goes back to our core ethos of how do we just lower the barrier, right? If you were an artist setting your royalties, what is the best what is the best one to pick? It's just another step, another mental hurdle in your head to figure out, like, okay, what is this? We just wanted to take that variable out. Eventually, we have a plan to open that up, but right now our artists are totally fine with it. So when there is that demand, we'll do it. But yeah, right now our artists are totally fine with that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think that's a good place to also end off. But before I let you go, what can we expect from Mint Songs in the next year? What's up and coming beyond giving more flexibility on royalties like you just dropped? Walk me through that.
Yeah, so in the next year, this is gonna be a big year, man.
I'm sure.
So we raised our seed round in December from Castle Island Ventures, North Island Ventures, Coinbase Ventures, Dapper Labs, Polygon, Grammatic, IOSG, Freestyle. A lot of great folks.
Congrats.
Appreciate it. And some amazing angels too, like Christina Beltramini and Jeff Renaud. Like one thing is for certain is that this is going to be a very, it's going to be a pivotal year. Like, we are a startup. We're still trying to find product market fit. And, luckily we have a great eng team to throw darts at the board, and, whatever sort of sticks, we're going to lean into. So expect more experiments out of us. Expect, we're going to keep driving more products that make sense for artists and driving more experiences that in real life experiences that make sense, so that we can really bridge the gap here. Like it's all about bridging. It's all about education, and the tools that we put out will sort of resonate with those two ideas.
Garrett?
Yeah. I think in the short term, you can expect in the coming weeks better discovery tools, more marketplace things such as filters, search, global search, filtering by price, primary, secondary, a lot of these tools to help artists kind of show up for fans. And so we'll address those. We'll also just continue experimenting, like Dwight said. Things around interaction are really, really, front of mind, and things along just a lot of different experiments around a lot of things. Some of the things we talked about today, and just, how we can try things that nobody else is doing and seeing if that makes sense or not. In March, we'll have some more things around a campaign we're running. So stay tuned in 2 weeks.
Awesome. Guys, exciting times. Where can we find you now? Like each of you individually.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Dorculas, Dorculas. I thought it was a good idea to just smash both my first name and last name into my Twitter handle, and
Amazing.
Now that's my handle for Snapchat, Instagram, everything else. So, at Dorculas, and then for Mint Songs, at Mint Songs.
Cool.
Yeah. I'm Garrett.mintsongs.eth on Twitter, or at _Garrett Hughes. Nowadays I think all of Web3 is on Twitter.
Yeah. Guys, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
We have to do this again in a few months and do a recap, a check-in, and till then.
Yeah.
Till then.
Appreciate it.